As they began to
Oh,
break
what the
open
fuck? Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are checking out a horror sketch made by a person I know personally as Val. Now Val is a small YouTube creator and I really wanted to check out their videos as they do horror sketches based off horror stories. I really wanted to bring you guys along with the journey and I hope you do check out Val as well as they have a lot of good content on there. I'm just here to react to two videos today. One being called Not Perfect and the other one being called Sleep. We're gonna buckle up into this video right here and let's do this. So the first video we are going to be checking out is called Not Perfect. It is 3 twisted horror stories. Judging by the description, these are all found on Reddit. We're going to get right into it. This first one is by a creator known as Garnet and Opal. Let's get into it.
Jonas was so sure he had gotten it right. He had put years into this project, and he had chased down all the missteps and corrected them. But here it was, the rubber beating the road. No matter how he stimulated the test subject.
I just want to wholeheartedly point out, Val does all their own art, and I've seen it in this Discord server we're both a part of. It's amazing. I absolutely love their art so much.
There was something not quite right. There were small inconsistencies that he thought he had ironed out. Genetics was just as much as an art form as it is a science. It was a hard pill to swallow, but the past 5 years' work would probably need to be scrapped and new protocols put in place. It wasn't a complete waste of time, but
it's giving me an eerie feeling.
Right. Not 100%. None of the clones were exact copies yet. Some clones were not right early on, and he had terminated them before they can even draw breath. Some flaws took a bit longer to determine, and their termination was later, but as soon as Jonas could do it. It was becoming increasingly difficult to terminate them. The difficulty was not because of the clone's reactions, but the admission that he had failed yet again. Out of nearly 3,000 clones he had created, he was down to the last one. Come here. Comparing the clone to various photographs, he came to the conclusion that this one isn't right either. He drew a hypodermic with enough metaprolol to terminate this clone. No, please. Jonas considered it was a mistake to teach the clones to speak. Come here and hold still. The clone's face turned to him with a final unspoken entreaty. At that precise moment, Jonas caught a glimpse of one of the photographs. It was a photograph of Jonas at the age of 4. He was crying because he was being removed from his parents' care. The clone looked exactly like the child in the photo, but Jonas had already delivered the injection.
Oh shit. That was I think the first one. Honestly, that was really good. I love how they narrate it. I don't know, I just really like it. Oh my gosh. Next one is by That Field Author. My gosh.
Forehead, causing his quite white hair to stick up wildly. Speaking a code into his smartwatch,
I already don't like this. But like in a way of
his little home.
I hate dark rooms, man.
He was shocked to see the creatures had already broken through the gates and were crawling across the grounds. The wrenches had already been terrifying on the TV, reducing cities to wastelands.
Val, what the fuck have you made, man?
Thanks to their sheer numbers. But seeing them in person turned his blood to ice. They were skeletal frames draped with sticky, thin skin. Mouths agape and dripping blood, covered with sores and infections. Many of them feasted on arms, heads, and other remains of people they had come across. His heart pumped faster as they advanced, so putrid that not even the guard dogs would touch them. When he and the other billionaire CEOs lobbied Congress to pass the Wealth Protection Act, it seemed perfectly logical. The poor and destitute were basically a different species, and it just made sense to round him up into special camps separate from those of a proper status like himself.
Fuck, I'm freaking myself out.
It wasn't his fault that they couldn't get food or medical supplies.
Val has this very eerie tone to their voice, and it works perfectly
now, however,
for these types of videos.
Instead of staying down and quiet,
they speak very clearly.
Eating the one meat still plentiful in the world. As they began to
break open the doors,
he shut himself inside his vault and hid behind the stacks of cash. He briefly wondered if there was enough to satiate them, but he knew it was a foolish question. They didn't want money anymore. They wanted him.
Oh. That one got me a bit. Oh my god. That one kind of freaked me out. Okay, this one's by Wellesley, and it goes for 4 minutes, so I'm a bit excited.
The media called me Dr. Death. But despite the nickname, I never claimed to be a doctor, and I firmly believed in life.
Oh god.
But there is a point where life just isn't life any longer. You don't need to be a doctor to know that. Ask anyone who's seen a loved one battle the last days of cancer, Alzheimer's, or motor neuron disease, and you'll know exactly what I mean. I watched my mother fall apart piece by piece. My siblings and I looked after her the best way we could. She was so deranged at the end.
This room looks so disturbing.
Her children to help her die. Of course, we didn't, and she endured those monstrous months to the very last heartbeat. A veterinarian will euthanize a sick hamster for dignity's sake, to end pain. A goddamn hamster. But no one would or could help my mother. She was 40 years old. By the time I was that age, I had already become a millionaire, and something of
Dreams core stuff really freaks me out.
I sold a product worldwide that provided hope and deliverance to thousands. It promised the end of pain, and it delivered. It was legal in the fact that it didn't directly provide any drugs or chemicals, but information how to easily source or synthesize them. Once ingested, they result in almost immediate and total analgesia. My product was a how-to guide, no more, for those who needed guidance in their darkest hours. Many tried to stop me. The religious groups were the worst. One particular bunch of extremists
I find people who come up with this stuff, like the visual representation,
preach, Thou shalt
so
not kill.
good.
They all told me that what I did went against God. God gives, they said, and only God can take away. I still stand by my justification. If God exists at all, He is the God of
I love
pain,
the type of photos I've used for this one, as it feels very
every day, all over the world.
Dream horror-ish. It feels
business boomed, and my family.
It gives the representation that I feel as someone who grew up in a hospital. It's giving that vibe of hospital.
Out who we were.
Like even that figure.
My kids would be bullied at every school.
I don't know. It
friends and family
resembles
members
hospital a bit.
Us. So I suspected nothing the day I came home and found the cops surrounding my house. I wondered if protesters have splashed the walls with Borvine blood again, or put bricks through the windows. The police had no words and insisted that I see for myself. My wife and kids sat huddled together on the sofa. I think I knew then. Even as
Pause. I just want to point out how horribly tangled my headphones are. And I desperately need to fix this. I just really need to show someone.
I asked her what was wrong. She didn't answer. I laid a hand on her shoulder, and she slumped forward. I couldn't bear to look at the faces of my kids. The guide I sold contained no idle boast. It delivered on its promise.
Oh.
My wife proved to be my last customer.
Oh. I just want to show you guys,
everyone.
like, look at their art! Oh my god! I love it. I love this video so much. The next one is called Sleep. Now, these ones are supernatural horror stories. I'm very excited to get into this, as you all know I love supernatural stuff. Where Defiance.
I saw it outside, standing beneath the street lamp. So tall it nearly touched the bulb. It looked dark and slender, with no visible features from the distance I was viewing it from, and seemed nearly paper thin. The snowfall gently illuminated the figure beneath the flickering light, enchanting me until I blinked. It got closer. It pressed his face against the window, and, well, was it really a face? It had no eyes, just a void where they should be that seemed to reach out into the furthest parts of space itself. I saw tendrilled creatures floating through the cosmos that I didn't have the words to properly describe. Places where the absence of light was light itself. And stars. So many stars. It seemed to realize my entrancement this time and grinned so widely at me I thought its mouth would stretch endlessly, its jagged teeth growing in numbers. I blinked again and the figure was gone. Curiously, I had found my way up to my bedroom and I laid my head down on the pillow, with no recollection of doing so. The only thing on my mind being what that thing had left behind. A simple word scribbled on the fog glass. Sleep, 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 sleep. And so I lay there, eyes heavy. The snowfall was reflecting moonlight into my room, and I can almost make out a figure bent over in the corner. Too tall to stand, and a void swirling in the endless expanse that should be its eyes. Sleep. I think I'll sleep.
Abso-fucking-lutely not. Ha, you can't get me. It's the middle of the day. If you can't tell, this is how I cope when I shit myself. Next story is by Paiku. I'm guessing these are all on like Reddit.
Night. My wife and daughter were
subreddits.
Asleep. I was still awake, browsing on my computer.
Oh,
You
what the
see,
fuck
this
is
town
that
has
over
been
there?
nicknamed
Yuck.
Town because of the high amounts of murders that have happened here.
It's a shadow.
It's not that frequent, but the rate is still considerably higher than the average town. Despite that, people still live here and call this place home.
This image is
like me
really
and my
cool.
family.
I don't know why but there's
As I was
something about it
mindlessly
that's
browsing
fucking
on my
freaky.
computer, I heard faint screams coming from the house next door. The possibility of murder happening right next to my house came across my mind. You see, it had been about a month since the last murder in this town. It was all over the local news, and my family had followed the entire story about it, from the moment the murder was reported until the execution of the killer, which was shortly after.
Oliver, close your door, please. Close your door, please. I'm recording.
The death penalty was always the resolution for the killers in my town.
Death penalty?
As the screams got louder, I thought about the best thing to do in this situation. Since it was very late at night, I figured that the other people around here were already asleep, so it was up to me to investigate. I didn't bother to disturb my wife and daughter, so I immediately grabbed my phone and walked out of my house.
I'm anxious.
I approached the house, which was the source of the screams. As I peeked from outside, there it was, murder. A middle-aged woman killing her family members with a knife. Without hesitation, I pulled out my phone and called the police to inform them about this. Something weird that I noticed was that the woman with the knife was Miss Hanson, the main witness of the last murder. I didn't know what to make out of it, so I shrugged it off. Before I was able to run away, I saw that the killer had noticed me.
Absolutely
I was
not.
distracted by her glowing white eyes. Before I knew it, her eyes began to glow in a brighter and brighter white, eventually blinding my vision.
That's not normal.
Then I lost consciousness. As I opened my eyes, I found myself inside the house of the murder, holding a knife standing next to the dead bodies. I wasn't in my own body anymore. My gaze focused on the man outside of the house, holding a phone. The man looks oddly similar to me. That's when I realized that's my original body. The man smiled at me with glowing white eyes, chuckled, and said, "The police are on their way. They're not gonna believe you."
They
At
swap
that moment,
bodies,
I
bro.
realized why each murderer in this town was the main witness of the last murder.
Nah, that's crazy.
He felt guilty for what he'd done. but it was over
Alright,
now.
number
He
3.
pushed a lock of hair away from her glassy eyes, but didn't bother to shut them. Her face had faded to a pale cream, and her body was beginning to cool. The pool
that
of
blood?
blood and the grass around her open ribcage had concealed into a sludge.
Oh,
He
what?
carefully slid his boot backwards to avoid the puddle, and wiped his hands on his jeans. No matter what his hunger drove him to do, he always felt remorseful with a full stomach.
These are
This one was
creepy
no
fucking
different.
stories, man. I know that's
He
the
caught her in a
point. I
trail
know
by a
that's the
parking
point. Still excited.
People often overestimated how fast they can complete the trails, and he would wait, patiently, for a straggler caught in the rapid winter sunset. He felt her fear building as he approached. She gently put her pack in the back seat and jumped behind the wheel. But he can move faster than the average man, and he grabbed the door before she can shut it. She stared directly into his face, eyes wide. For a second, neither of them moved. He could hear her heartbeat thumping wildly in her chest, calling to him. And then, she scooted across the seat and jumped out. Surprised, he watched her run across the pavement. The passenger door flung open behind her. His eyes dilated. His pulse accelerated. His predatory instinct kicked in.
Yikes.
She didn't make it far.
Oh no.
He caught her on the other side of the lot and snapped her neck before dragging her into the tree line.
Oh my god.
He liked to enjoy his meals in privacy. Now that he was done, his mind was more clear. He stood
my
in the
God.
moonlit. There was one other heartbeat calling to him in the darkness. He tracked the thin, rapid pulse back to the car, where her baby sat strapped into the backseat carrier.
No. Oh my god! No! No, baby! Thank you so much for watching today's video. That was all I had planned for today. I really enjoy Val's content. I might check out some more of their videos another time. Overall, I hope you enjoyed this video. Alright, my camera just started. This is doing my outro. Goodbye! Mwah.